What's up, Jeremy?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yep.
All right, good deal. I'm just finishing touches on a train here, and we'll be right over there.
You got anything in particular that you're going to be running tonight?
All right, I missed what you said there.
Do you got anything in particular that you're going to be sharing with us tonight?
Oh, just a little bit of everything, but otherwise we're doing good.
What kind of trains are you going to be running?
Well, that's what's great. I got a wireless mic, so it's super easy to change stuff around. What I've got set up right now is, I don't exactly know what year it is, maybe a 47 Lionel 221, which is the streamlined Dreyfus looking locomotive.
Mm-hmm.
And that's got the green and yellow striped passenger cars behind it. And then on the other track, I've got the Lionel EP5 with a set of tank cars behind it. That's looking really good. And I've got a whole new track layout. I totally tore my temporary layout apart and laid out a whole new track layout. Hopefully it's a lot more visually entertaining.
I could definitely see that from a distance away.
Awesome. All right.
All right, guys. How are you all doing tonight?
Hey, there's all the comments over there. Cool. I like it.
What's going on, Frank? Looks like Ed just joined us as well. How you doing, Ed? Can't stay on long, but I wanted to at least check in.
Fellow train drivers, I like it.
All right, everybody. So before we get started, I just wanted to welcome my very special guest for tonight, Jeremy, from his channel, Too Many Hobbies, and he's actually one of the first. Hold on, just 1 second. He's actually one of the first he's actually the first person on this year for 2024, as a matter of fact. So make sure to give him a warm welcome to the channel tonight.
Glad to be here.
All right, so since we're both here, I thought we might go ahead and start with a little bit of a Q&A, trying to get to know each other a little bit better, and also talk about how the hobby is kind of expanding and how it's, climbing and declining at the same time, and also mostly do what I always like to do best when I have somebody on here, is to always have a good time.
Definitely. Sounds good.
Nice. Okay, so I guess my first question is, if you read the new Lionel 2024 catalog, what are your thoughts on some of the items that Lionel is coming out with this year? Some of the positive things and some of the negative things that you kind of experienced while looking through everything? And what are your overall general thoughts on everything that Lionel is advertising for this year?
Okay, we got a couple comments that we got a echo. I'm going to make a change on my end.
Okay, because I'm actually starting to get an echo here myself as well.
All right, there is an adjustment I saw for echo cancellation. I have that turned on. Doing a sound test, 1, 2, 3. Is the echo any better?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Wow, that's good to know. All right, so if anybody else has any sound issues, let me know. It's my first time using StreamYard, and I usually use just straight OBS with YouTube, so let me know. All right, let's see. So my only interaction with the Lionel catalog is watching your video, which I thought was good, and watched a few other videos on it. I like, and please correct me if I'm going off in a tangent the wrong direction here on your question, but it's really amazing that what they're doing with the catalog. And I've only been into the modern Lionel stuff, at least noticing it for the last couple of years, so I don't have a lot of history to go off of, but I think it's pretty impressive what they're doing. And watching some other creators and whatnot go on about it, things are certainly expensive, but I view it as more of it's a luxury item. It's top tier quality stuff. And, if that's within your budget, then by all means, go for it. And if it's not, it's something you save up for, and I'm certainly okay with that. I'm not really the price police. I don't go, man, this is so expensive, nobody should pay that much. It's like, no, if you want to pay for it, go for it. Have a good time.
I definitely agree with that logic there, and that's also another thing for me at least. I don't really collect any of the newer. Well, I mostly don't collect any of the newer Lionel stuff, as well as some of the newer items that MTH is coming out with today. But it really depends on not just what I'm interested in, but mostly what anybody else is interested in out there. Sometimes I might see a piece that I might really get attached to right away, but I don't really go out there and buy it just yet. I try to look up a little bit more information on the actual product. And if I see it at like a train show or something, and I might think to myself, I actually had this on my list for quite some time, but I'm not sure if I ever came to what's the word I'm looking for? Like I never really came to like an exact like commitment to purchasing that particular item just yet. But the more I look at something, and the more that it intrigues me, then I would definitely go for it. I actually had that exact same feeling when I actually first purchased my first line sheet plus locomotive. It was a Lionel Santa Fe. I believe the number is 4103, and that was the Brookshire locomotive. So that was definitely one of the newer engines that I got really attached to with the most.
Nice. One of the cool things I like about looking at the catalog, and also I'm not a huge reader, but I just picked up a book recently on Lionel history. But in some of the other things I read, I get ideas from it. So I was reading about the Pennsylvania Railroad. I got a book of the Pennsylvania Railroad, and it's like they mentioned the GG1, and I was like, one day I'd like to have one of those. So it gives me good ideas.
Well, thankfully for me, I do have a GG1 in my collection, and it's actually the Century Club version from 1998.
That is awesome. I recently learned about those, and those are really special.
They sure are. Now, even though the locomotive still works, unfortunately, the sound system, I can no longer operate the sound system at all. So for a lot of people out there who are trying to scatter for original parts for the Century Club locomotives, you're not really going to find a whole lot, especially when it comes to the sound files. I mean, and as for me, in regards to the sound system inside the GG1, I'm thinking about either going with one or two options. Option one would probably would be going with an MTH sound file instead of Lionel, or the second option that I had was to go with the new Blue Nami system that everybody seems to be talking about a lot lately.
Very cool. I don't really know anything about that sound system. It sounds good.
Well, the thing with the Blue Nami system is it's pretty much brand new. It actually comes from like a small company that makes like little sound files and such for like not only just O gauge locomotives in particular, but also some HO items as well, and some other, scale like locomotives and such. But from what I've been seeing online from other, websites and such, well, not just websites, but other YouTubers such as Anonymous Trains, Sid's Trains, the way they installed their Blue Nami system in their locomotives, the way the sound just comes out of their locomotives is just phenomenal. It more or less just sounds like an actual locomotive or an actual prototype that you will find on the real railway. And you might think to yourself, that sound file might actually be pretty accurate to the real prototype.
Very cool. Very cool. I've watched some videos on Rapido. They do a lot of stuff with HO and N-Gauge and stuff, and they go crazy with their sound sampling and everything. It's quite a science, actually.
Yeah, it is. So how long have you been involved in the hobby for?
Oh man, it's been a really long time. So I remember getting interested in trains at a very young age. I remember having a tiny Bachmann N scale train, just a little steamer, and broke that probably pretty early on because I was probably too young for it. And then got into HO a little bit, but nothing too serious. And then kind of discovered my dad's American Flyer stuff. And then I remember going to like the local mall in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, where I would they'd have like a train show there, and I remember buying, you know, some cars and whatnot, and saving up and kind of expanding his collection. And then it kind of went along where I ended up getting a job, and then I bought my first Lionel, or actually O-Gauge starter set, which was a K-Line Tar Heel Express, and that was something different, just to see if I wanted O-Gauge stuff, because what I love about O-Gauge is there's so much more variety of equipment offered and more manufacturers and whatnot. And so it's been probably, you know, it's been a long time. So right now I'm like 52. So yeah, since I was like, you know, 12 or something like that. So been a while.
Nice. I actually got my start in the hobby probably when I was about like in between 3 to 5 years old. My parents used to, when I was like a toddler, you know, my parents used to get me all the Thomas the Tank Engine VHS tapes for me to watch at home.
Nice.
As well as some of the older I Love Toy Trains videos, such as like the first I Love Toy Trains they got me, then they got me the second one and the third one, and then they got me part 4, which is actually still my favorite by heart. Even to this very day, as a grown man, I still love watching those old I Love Toy Trains videos. And then as I got a little bit older, you know, I kind of grew out of Thomas the Tank Engine after quite some time, and then I slowly moved on to watching I Love Toy Trains a lot more. And that's also another thing, because when I was young, as much as I loved watching Thomas, there was some other characters on the show that kind of gave me the creeps just a little bit, not in like a scary kind of way, more like a heebie-jeebies kind of way.
Sure.
And the more I started watching I Love Toy Trains, I started to realize, you know, these things aren't really that scary. They look like something you actually find on the real railroad today. And, you know, as I started getting older, I started to get more into not just I Love Toy Trains, but it also helped me get into model railroading a lot more, because I experienced when I was younger. You know, I didn't know a whole lot, and sometimes I wouldn't really know any better. But the one thing that just really took my breath away was just watching those videos. You know, checking out some of the older Lionel locomotives, like the 736 Berkshire, the GG1, and they also had like, you know, planes flying around. They had dinosaurs. They had automobiles and footage of real trains. You know, anything that really tugs at, you know, a young boy's heart, you know, just by watching those films. But anyway, of course, the model trains also did help me get into real trains. And, you know, the more I started collecting, you know, Lionel and MTH, I noticed that there was a thing. I was like, you know, I believe I was starting to notice that some of these locomotives and such were based off of actual prototypes. And I was like, you know, I want to see if I can get not just more interested in the hobby itself, but also learn about the real thing out there.
Oh, definitely. Because with my interest, when I started looking at my dad's stuff, I fell in love with the Elko PA, because the American Flyer made just a beautiful Elko PA. And that got me interested in learning about the real thing. And, you know, one of the odder things about that engine is it's been kind of christened an honorary steam engine because they smoked so badly when they throttled up. But I think that was pretty cool. A little tidbit of knowledge there.
Mm-hmm. And that was also another thing. That's also very interesting, because, you know, with American Flyer and Lionel from back like in the 40s and the 50s, you know, Lionel was more focused on making toys rather than actual prototypes, even though they did use like some examples and blueprints of actual locomotives. Meanwhile, American Flyer did have a toy like foundation for some of their trains and accessories. They still managed to base them off of actual locomotives and such, but they were trying to go more with a scale scheme compared to Lionel, which was more fanciful and toy-like.
Definitely. Yeah, it's now that I'm, you know, been dabbling in the post-war stuff just the last year or maybe two, it gives me a real interesting view, because you can tell that there's different philosophies at each company with how they design things for manufacturing. I mean, I take apart an Alco FA body shell, and it's one screw, and the thing just lifts off, and it's beautiful. I could say, okay, they did this for manufacturing purposes to make it easier to manufacture. And then you look at American Flyer Alco PA, there's like 6 screws on the underside of the body that are a pain in the butt to put in and take out and take it apart. And it's like, okay, different way of approaching things.
Definitely. And American Flyer made their, engines a lot easier to work with too. I mean, Lionel did as well, but I feel like with the American Flyer engines, they were a lot easier to like take apart and put back together without having any troubles along the way.
Sure. Yeah, definitely. Well, both companies definitely made some good products. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm. That they did. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and check to see what's going on in the comments section here before we continue on. What's up, Shadowcap? I was blessed to be able to catch an M372 on the B&O old mainline that had CSX 1976 Conrail and a GP38-3, a Wisconsin Central boxcar, and a Sioux Lines center beam flat car.
Very cool. Thank you very much, Corey. I just redid it, so I got a couple U shapes in there, and I'll definitely you'll see it in future videos. That's for sure.
So what are the most things that you find very enjoyable about the hobby, and what are some of the things that you kind of find a little bit troublesome?
Oh man, troublesome about the hobby in general. The closing of hobby stores. There was just another one that I don't remember which one it was. Well, actually, I got an interesting story. I was looking to find a relatively local place for parts that I wouldn't have to spend hopefully a ton of money on shipping. There are a lot of big name dealers that have Lionel parts, which are great. I definitely want to support those when I can. But I found a hobby store in Michigan, which pretty close to Wisconsin. Got my order in and eventually got it back. And then about a month later, I learned they closed. So it was like the last parts order I could even get from them. So the closing of hobby stores is kind of a big thing. So when I go to, I just went to St. Paul, and there's a lot of good hobby stores in Minnesota, but I went to Scale Model and Supplies in St. Paul, and I dropped quite a bit of money there, but I view it as an investment in the hobby, and I want to keep them going. They've been around for a long time, but they've just, it's a great hobby store, and try to keep them going. What do I like about the hobby? One of the things I really love is actually what we're doing. And one of the things that, I wanted to partake more, to be part of the community. That's what I'm really trying to do. And let's see, I just saw a question from the Rolls Jewel Railroad. I will answer that. Let's see here. So what else do I like about the hobby? Just like the reason why I went with Lionel, because the variety. And I think that also goes true in the hobby in general, because with the internet and everything, there's just so much more out there, and there's so much more information. And it's like, hey, did you check out this new product and whatnot, even if you don't have a catalog in front of you. So some really, really great things coming on the way, and YouTube has been amazing with all the creators doing the train stuff, and been having a good time. So let's see here. So the Rolls Jewel Railroad, do I still like my Menards local? Yeah. Yeah. The problem is I love collecting. I'm a collector at heart. I'm a collector and operator. So it doesn't sit on the shelf and, don't touch that, don't scratch that. It gets used. But because I have so many locals and because I continue to buy so many locals, it doesn't get run all that much. None of my locals actually get run more than others. I try to spread it out. And there's actually some cases where I don't even, I do a temporary layout, and although my youngest son, who's 16 now, he would love me to pull out every single thing I have, it's kind of too much in one crack. So I kind of tend to rotate some stuff. There's definitely some equipment that I have that I've had for a long time that you guys haven't seen yet. So there's lots of cool stuff around.
Nice. I also tend to do the same thing with some of my engines too. Like I might run them for like a couple of weeks to like a month or so, but then after a while I might get tired with them and might swap them out for something else. Sometimes when you have like a really big collection, at the same time, you got to think to yourself, what are some of the items that I run the most, and what are some of the items that I don't really run as much like I used to. And that was actually a really tough thing for me to think about, over the past couple of years, having such a big collection, in my possession.
Definitely. Let's see, what do we got? All right. Can't compete with online hobby. There you go. I understand.
What's up, Chris? Oh yeah, but getting back to that Menards train real quick. I know this seems a little bit of last minute, but I really enjoyed that review that you did on the new Menards train set that just came out a little while back.
No, thank you very much. That's great. That has been I kind of gambled. I've been doing YouTube for several years, but only on my personal channel here. I've only really been focusing on it the last year and a half, 2 years, because I used to do pinball mayhem. I'm still part of it, but that's all the pinball machines I got behind me and stuff, and I learned quite a bit.
I used to love pinball.
Oh, that's good. Good.
I mean,
pinball,
I still do. I still do now, but you don't see a whole lot of arcades or pinball machines out here where I am.
Okay. Yep. So yeah, it's like when I went on my Minnesota trip, we specifically stopped at 2 pinball places and played pinball for a few hours. So that was a lot of fun. Played some rare machines. So I've been focusing on YouTube, growing my channel. We're pretty close to 1,000 subscribers on my personal channel, which is amazing. I want to say thank you to everybody that's subscribed. But one of the things when I saw the Menards, I saw the information on the Menards beforehand because they were doing the beta locomotives. So there was some interest generated there. So when I learned, I found on Facebook somebody, I wasn't even part of a railroad group, but somebody said, it's like, hey, the Menards thing is out today. So it's like I went and bought it immediately because it's like not because necessarily it was an engine that I had to have, but I knew it could potentially help grow the channel. And I didn't want to get into the trap of, buying viewers or whatnot. I was concerned about that, even though the price point is very good on it. But it's like, I said, even if it totally bombs, I don't get any views, it'll still be a fun engine for me to have. And I just took my time doing that review. After, I shouldn't say I took my time. I did it like the day I got it. But I thought about it a lot. And it was well worth it for me to do it because that video has just helped me get kind of jumpstart the channel, and well worth it. And I enjoyed it on top of it, so it's really good.
I enjoyed it as well, and that's also another thing because just like when you open up a store or something, similar to YouTube, you don't want to just go out and just make a channel for all of the views. That's almost just like trying to raise money. And you should, just like when opening a business, you should never do it for money. You should really do it just because you have a really big compassion for something, like you said. And yeah, that's pretty much what I have to add on when it comes to that.
Oh yeah. It's I am definitely, like I said, because I do the pinball mayhem stuff beforehand with the YouTube. It's like I'm definitely more of a metrics guy and analytics, which I never thought I ever would be. If somebody would have said, 10 years ago, oh, you're going to be looking at numbers and charts and graphs, and I was like, not me. But I find it really interesting and fascinating. And I have fun. That's the main thing. Have fun doing it.
Absolutely. And you should also really do it for the people who really love watching your videos online.
Definitely, yeah. That's when you're starting a channel, that's a little harder. The thing I've learned about YouTube and how the algorithm works is the algorithm doesn't find people. It doesn't find people to watch your videos. It finds videos that people will enjoy. So
Yes.
I find that really fascinating, and it works really good because YouTube algorithm has gotten so good in the last like 5 years. I'm on my recommendations alone. It's like, oh, there's somebody I've never seen before, but there's a cool video on a train or something that I never would have found otherwise.
I can't disagree with that.
Okay, Rose Jules got another good one. Jeremy, you must be a northern Wisconsin guy. All right. Yes, I am technically central Wisconsin, but it depends on the state where you are, because it seems like everybody south of us goes like, oh, you're way up north in the Northwoods, and it all kind of depends. But yeah, there's definitely some good stuff up here. And I enjoy getting to the south part of Wisconsin too. I've been to Milwaukee several times, Madison, of course. But yeah, good stuff, good stuff. Hey, there's Chuck's Lionel and Mark's Trains. I really have to thank Chuck. I did in my video, but if you guys haven't seen my latest Alco FA video, I've gone head deep in the Alco FAs. I've got like about 6 or 8 of them right now, and Chuck was the one that his video convinced me to take a look at the Alco FA because it's a good. I like it because they're still like relatively cheap. They're good performers if you get something with magnet traction, and they're a lot of fun. So
they most definitely are. So just to get back to the Menard set real quick. Oh, there it is. I definitely see the I definitely see that red and silver Santa Fe Alco there.
Yep.
So anyway, getting back to the Menard set that you reviewed on your channel a little while back. When I was watching it, I kind of took notice of the locomotive itself. You know, a lot of the baited units that have came out from Menards, you know, they started to get better and better. But when the actual set came out, and when I was watching the review of the one that you were doing, I couldn't help but notice that the sound system still kind of remains almost exactly the same. Well, not so much the sound system, but the way that the sound file is in the actual engine, it's still pretty much the same as the earlier beta models. Like when you blow the horn just cuts off immediately. And the bell, you know, I'm not going to get too much into detail on the bell. You know, bell's still pretty much the same. You know, like the bell's the bell. So
sure,
I'm not gonna go over that. But I really felt like that maybe Menards should have really used the newer beta models for the actual train sets. And as for the actual set that it comes with, what I would have done, at least if I was working at Menards, was to replace the caboose with the actual dummy unit that goes with the locomotive itself. If you know what I'm talking about.
Sure. Yeah, that's very interesting. I did get that. I surprisingly, with all the views, I've only gotten that comment once or twice, so that is a valid comment. I didn't do a whole lot of research on the differences in the proto or in the beta ones beforehand, but I definitely believe you guys if that's what you say. I think it probably has to do with these are made in China, and they probably said, produce this one, we want it for Christmas this year, whatever year it was when they made that decision. And I bet that's probably the reason why it's like that. And I'm curious if the Union Pacific, if it was produced at the same time, it probably was. It's probably got the same issue. But what I'm really looking forward to with the Menards is potentially new paint jobs and or new locomotive designs. I'm looking forward to that.
And new molds too, because I know I stressed this like multiple times here on this channel, but I'm really curious to see if Menards will ever come out with a set of passenger cars at some point in the future.
Yeah, because it's a passenger locomotive. I mean, it's got the. Well, let me grab it here. All right, let's see. So I just read a book on the electromotive versions of these, so it's pretty cool. But it's actually got the steam. It's modeled that it's got a steam generator in here. So yeah, hopefully they're going to have some passenger units. That would be really cool.
That would be. And another thing that I would do if I had a Menards Santa Fe locomotive of my own, I would try to modify it so that way it would actually run a lot better. Like, for example, what I would do if I had the locomotive in my possession would be to take the not gearbox, the nylon gears out of the actual on the bottom of the locomotive and replace them with post-war metal gears. The piece that it comes with, the wheel, the way that the wheels are structured on the bottom are very similar to older Lionel post-war wheels.
Okay. Yep. I think
Or the power truck. That's what I meant to say. Power truck.
Right. Yeah. I think the gear diameter is different from what I've seen, but yeah, it would be really cool to to do something like that. But so far, the plastic gears have been holding up. I don't know if you watched any of the other videos. I've done about 3 or 4 videos on the Menards one, and there's one where I do a stress test. And I pull quite a few cars of various weights and whatnot, and surprisingly, it did really good. So
I think
far,
I
so
remember
good.
that video. Yeah.
Let's see. It looks like we got some comments on the Menards stuff here. Solar train sets, nice, interesting. I don't blame you, Sled Cut. Most of what they carry, I'm not interested in. Some come with metal couplers, some do not. Interesting. Yeah, that's another cool thing about where Menards has kind of positioned themselves. They don't have to make any trains to keep their doors open, to keep their employees busy. They've got plenty of other stuff. They just do it for the fun of it, I think.
That's right.
So that is cool. And one thing that surprised me when I first did some research on their track, that how many different types they make. They don't have to make 072 tin plate, an 072 tubular track, but they do. They make a variety of stuff, and it just shocked me how many various pieces of different track they make.
I do believe I remember seeing or watching a video on this topic, like you mentioned earlier before. Making a comparison between Menards train items with Lionel and MTH is kind of an unfair comparison because, like you said, Menards can just if they could, they would just go ahead and stop making trains completely. Because, like you mentioned, they got other things that they sell at their hardware store as well.
Yeah, it's a really interesting model they have, shall we say, business model.
And it's also like you said, they're not really in it as a really big investment. They're just mostly just there to have fun.
Yeah, and you mentioned the investment, but it's like it probably would boggle our minds if we knew how much money they've sunk into it. I mean, the development of the engine and whatnot, it's not this engine really is not a carbon copy of anybody else's that I know of. So yeah, they definitely sunk some money into it.
And even the quality of the paints that they use, because considering that, I don't know who else is watching this tonight, but if anybody has a Menards product, whether it's a locomotive or a freight car or whatnot, that they're not always perfect when it comes to painting the actual product that they come out with. Like I have an Alaska hopper that was made by Menards back in 2016. And just by taking a better look at the actual car itself, I could tell that there's some flaws here and there, but everything else on the actual freight car is just beautiful.
Definitely. Yeah, it's the variety of stuff they offer is pretty crazy. I'm generally on their site weekly trying to see, they come up with anything new, even though I do get the emails, but sometimes those emails take a little while to get.
Oh, looks like Ours Trains just joined us. What's up, Corey? Welcome to the channel. what I love about Menards is the price. I love getting new cars and cars for cheap. They're all good quality for me, and I love all the different box cars as well.
That really is a great point there, because it's like if somebody that buys it is happy with the quality, then by all means, bravo.
All right, looks like he's going back to the beginning now. What's up, Corey? I heard that Menards' CEO is no gauger. It was his idea to build lower price point items.
Nice.
I can see that being this fact. Yep, for what the price point is, Menards is incredible.
Hmm. Both Corey's in the house. I like it.
How you doing tonight, Ed? Menards wheels are not spaced, the same as the other guys. They short out on switch tracks from time to time.
Interesting.
I'm taking an HW break to swing in. I see quite a few familiar names in the chat tonight. Yes, that is definitely true. Like I said earlier in the beginning of the stream, we always like to have fun here, no matter what type of subjects that we talk about.
Definitely. One of the things that I find interesting about even just straight up Lionel products, because I'm kind of experiencing the whole range of their stuff, because Lionel's been producing stuff for a long time. So right now I'm kind of delving a little bit into the post-war stuff, but I also get my hands on some newer stuff. It's just the variety. I mean, just like even in a box car, there's different sizes and there's different weights and there's different levels of detail, and it's just, when you grab one, you can grab one from a certain era and a certain line. He's like, "Boy, this is like cheap junk," and then you look at something else and it's like, "Wow, this is really high quality." Just a huge range of stuff available. That's one of the things that really interests me about Lionel and other manufacturers too.
That's just like with when Marx was in business. They made trains that were different sizes. Some were big, some were small, some were little, and also, don't forget, Lionel is not actually, even though they are the oldest model train company in the United States of America, they're not the oldest model train company in the world. That crown actually belongs to Markland, who actually been making model trains since the early 1890s.
Very cool. I am familiar with that name.
The only issue I ever had with Menards cars are the couplers, especially the flat or auto racks. They uncouple consistently, and oof, what a headache that is with a big train. Yes, I could definitely understand that as well. Even though I don't really have an auto rack or some of the other cars that you mentioned, I definitely have heard the complaints about that before. All right, looks like we got another question for Jeremy here from my friend Corey. From my friend Corey here.
Got a good one there. Corey says, question for Jeremy: do you have a favorite scale, and whatever scale that may be, do you have a super special locomotive that's your number one favorite? All right, so it's changed throughout the years, but I have to say, even though I do have fond memories of American Flyer stuff, I really like O-Gauge. I find that when I hold it in my hands, it's a good product. I'm not worried about breaking something. I have dabbled in O-Gauge and N-Gauge and stuff like that. I like them all, but definitely O-Gauge. And for favorite locomotive, let's see. Let me grab it over here from my little shelf here. This is my very first modern quotation mark locomotive. This is an MTH. This is a Proto 1, but it's EP5. I love the paint scheme.
Very nice.
Thank you. I love it because several reasons. I bought it at a train show. There was a vendor that must have been a hobby shop because they had tons of similar products, lots of the same kind of product. And they were clearancing it out several years ago, like for $150. And I'm sure Proto 2 was well into its own by then. And so it's like I was just getting into the O-Gauge stuff. So I was like, okay, yeah, my first locomotive that I can't do anything with because I only had just a basic K-line transformer. But it was amazing. And then when I finally heard the sounds of it, it's like, oh my gosh, it's like I love the sound set on this locomotive. So that is my absolute favorite locomotive, just for the memories mainly. Excellent question, by the way. If anybody else has any questions, let us know. We're all about questions and having a good time. And Mike does it on his streams. I do it on mine. We're here to hang out with you guys and have a good time.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
Thank you.
By the way, in case you guys know me, you all know what my very first MTH locomotive is. Well, it was the Amtrak Genesis originally, but in case you guys know me personally, when it comes to not just my YouTube channel, but also my other types of social media, you guys know what that locomotive is. But since Jeremy is here and he might not know about it, I'm going to go ahead and grab it real quick.
Awesome. Yeah. Ours Train says, an EP5, a classic, especially the McGinnis to New Haven scheme. I got to get myself the MPC Lionel GN1. It's a classic. I just recently picked up a Lionel MPC era Pennsylvania, and it is in amazingly good condition. That's another thing we should talk about, auctions and my weakness. Jeremy, try to buy MTH Atlas, an older local. Nice, very good. It's like, there's a lot of good deals on eBay. Yep. Ed says, I have an MPC era MP5 in Milwaukee Road livery. Great engine. Nice. Very cool. Very cool. So another thing we should maybe touch point on, and let me know what you think about it, but what do you think about online auction companies? I mean, there's eBay to buy stuff, and I've done that, but I'm just kind of getting into a collecting mode with one particular company, Cabin Fever. But I mean, there's stout auctions and whatnot. Have you done anything with online auctions?
Well, unfortunately, no. I mostly just like to keep things a little on the safe side.
Yeah,
I never really thought about, buying things on an auction or anything like that. But they seem to be very interesting to watch, though, at the same time.
That is a great point. Window shopping is awesome to do on an auction site because even though I maybe buy a few things a month on an auction site, sometimes more, sometimes less, I've actually learned a lot. Like I didn't realize that Lionel built some kind of high-end spec cars for the TCA members, early, like 98, 99, 2000, they had a run of cars that are like black and orange. Mm-hmm. And they look really great. And I never knew about those because, granted, I don't check out their catalogs, but they weren't cataloged. They weren't in a hobby store. But because various members are either retiring or other things or getting rid of their collections or whatnot, I ended up getting a set, and it's like I ended up bidding on some because it's like, oh, those look really cool. And because they don't say Santa Fe and because they don't say, Milwaukee Road, they go for a really good price. And that was a neat discovery just from watching an auction. I never would have known about them otherwise. So much cool stuff out there. So much good history.
Yep. Another gauge that I think is somewhat underrated today is standard gauge, because even though MTH, they used to came out with some Lionel reproductions of some classic locomotives like the Blue Comet or the State Set. They're not really making as many standard gauge locomotives or rolling stock like they used to. And when me and my dad were at York last October, we were talking to this one guy, and he mentioned that they do have, well, they don't really have it, of course, but he said that there is somebody who does still own the original standard gauge equipment and molds for those locomotives. So I'm really curious to see if that machine, not just the one machine that they used to, well, not just that one machine, but some of the other types of machinery that they had. I'm just really curious to see if that'll get auctioned off at some point, because if they ever think about bringing back standard gauge locomotives, I really do hope that equipment is going to go into the right hands.
Oh, good point. Good. Standard gauge is something I do find interesting because I view it as a real high end kind of Cadillac, even though it may not have, the MTH stuff has all the features, but just the quality on some of that stuff is pretty amazing, and the tin work is really beautiful.
Mm.
All right, we got
I would also say that my two favorite modern era standard gauge locomotives, not trying to change the subject on MTH, but the Lionel Hiawatha set that came out in 2001, as well as the Commodore Vanderbilt set, which came after that. Those probably have to be my two favorite modern day steam locomotives.
Very cool. Very cool indeed. Let's see here. We got some comments on auctions. Let's see here. Train auctions can have great prices, from David. Let's see here. Corey T says, I bought from Weiss Harris Auctions. Very cool.
What's going on, Corey?
Let's see. Ours Trains. Those smaller auction companies are where the deals are. Got a post-war 2350, I think. Baggage car from a 2350 in Santa Fe in great shape for 20. Holy moly! Well done. Well done. I'm one of the things I like about Cabin Fever is that they don't grade anything, and they only take a couple pictures. Their customer service is good, and they pack stuff good. But because of that, I mean, there's no guarantees on stuff. If you're careful, you can get a good deal. I've definitely got some good deals. I'm very happy with what I got. Good pricing. Let's see here. State auctions that don't do trains much will sell them for a lot lower price just to get them out. Yep. One thing I like to say about me and auctions is it's a good thing I don't live close to one. Good thing I don't live in Pennsylvania. I'd be driving all over the place to pick up my finds. You spend a lot of money. Train pylon auction size most part. Oh, nice. Yeah, I got started on Cabin Fever when they started doing the MTH warehouse closeout stuff. When MTH changed their business model.
Really?
Yeah. MTH was selling, I don't know if you're aware of this, but they were selling prototypes and engineering samples and just dusty boxes that have been in a warehouse for 10 years or more.
Yes.
There's definitely some interesting stuff going across the auction there.
Okay, I actually got a good one for you. Have you ever thought about, I don't know if you have given this some thought, but if there was a prototype out there, whether it's from Lionel or MTH or whoever, which prototype do you consider to be the most, which prototype would you think about purchasing one day if you had the opportunity?
I'm not really too huge on prototypes personally, because it's really cool to have something that's handmade or made of metal that's going to be a plastic model, which I saw a lot of those go across the line. So really cool. Mm-hmm. So I'm not really too much into prototypes, but I mean, just because I particularly like it, the Elko PA. I mean, I just love the lines of that locomotive, or like the EP5 here. That'd probably be something too, but it'd have to be something special that the locomotive I would like to begin with, because like I said, I'm a collector and operator, so it doesn't do me a whole lot of good just to collect it and have it set on the shelf. But there's definitely some neat stuff out there. How about you? What do you like?
Well, the one prototype that I really do find the most intriguing is the one for the Lionel Southern Pacific FM, which was originally going to be released in 1955, but they pulled the plug on it immediately for some whatever reasons.
Wow.
And, as we all know, the Lionel Southern Pacific FM didn't officially release until 1979. But looking at the prototype, you kind of take a look at it and you'll realize, I kind of see why they didn't really go into full production on it in the first place.
Very cool. Yeah,
it is very fascinating to look at, though.
I watched an interesting video on YouTube. It was done back when, this still is the case, but back when there was high demand in Lionel post-war stuff. I mean, like seriously high demand. Like people were investing in post-war stuff. The F3s and whatnot, and it's an older video because it was done by a gentleman who was a big-time collector, but he also identified a lot of fraud going on and what to look for. And it's like, wow, there's fraud in this, which makes sense. Anything of high value is going to have some fraud associated. But that kind of opened my eyes to some of the collecting history, even in Lionel, that there was these engines were going for so much money that there's a lot of fraud going on. And it's like, wow, it just kind of boggles the mind nowadays.
And there's a lot of people out there who are trying to scam you, give you a little bit of a bang for your buck on something where you think it's valuable, but then if you later on, you might realize, oh, this is a fake. I kind of got cheated out on my purchase here. And that's also another thing, because you really want to make sure you got to make sure that you need to be careful on that you're not purchasing a counterfeit off of anybody.
Sure, definitely.
So anyway, getting back to my first engine here. So for those of you guys out there who know me personally on my channel, I grew up running a lot of my dad's Lionel and MTH locomotives when I was very young. But my first ever train set wasn't given to me until I turned 7 years old on my birthday. So this is actually my first locomotive here. This is a Rail King Proto Sounds 1 Norfolk and Western steam locomotive. It came with a baggage car, a dome car, and an observation car. And then finally, it came with a loop of track, a lock-on, a circuit breaker, and the remote control system to come with the engine.
Very cool. I like the Class J. I hope to get ideally a MTH would be very good. I'd also like a post-war version. They go for a lot of money, but they are beautiful engines.
And if you guys can take a better look at the stripe here, the engine itself has kind of taken a little bit of a beating over the past couple of years, but she still runs pretty good. The only thing cosmetically that I have to do is to get the smoke unit replaced, because one day I was running it and then automatically the smoke unit just mysteriously stopped. I mean, it still pours out smoke very slightly, but it doesn't puff out smoke, which is kind of weird if you ask me.
Got another question from Ours Trains here. What is your preferred 3-rail track system? He just did a video in fastrack, but it's the only track he's had experience with. Good point.
Question.
You want to go first?
Yeah. So originally, I still use this track system today, but I always stick with Lionel tubular track, and I also used to operate fastrack a little for the past couple of years, but then after a while, I came to realize that fastrack was really noisy. So I really wanted to see if I could find a substitute where I would run my trains on my layout here, but not experience that annoyance from the hollowness of the fastrack. So I did some research and I realized, a lot of people seem to be collecting Atlas track for their layouts, and I heard a lot of great things about their track system over the past couple of years. So I kind of discussed it with my dad, and we both came to an agreement that we would switch over to a different track system when it comes to the layout behind me here, of course, because this layout behind me here, everything on this layout was all fastrack originally. And like I mentioned, noise just was starting to bug me after a while. So I really wanted to find something that was a little bit on the quieter side. So I'm definitely not sorry that I went with Atlas track here. I mean, the rails on the actual track is a little bit high. I guess you can consider this to be a somewhat of a high rail layout behind me. And as for the other layout, back all the way in the back, right where the backdrop is, I still have my Lionel tubular track. So when it came to, constructing the main layout here, I'm just really satisfied that I went with the Atlas track system.
Very cool. Very cool. I have some experience with the Lionel tubular and the fastrack because, as you guys can see in my video, I currently have both systems up in my layout. So I just added the second big loop. This is my biggest temporary layout that I've done, and I can always use more tables, so that's kind of my limiting factor. But my son loves it when I do like a track layout where two engines can race alongside of each other or whatnot. He really enjoys that. So I try to cater to him a little bit on that one. But which one do I prefer? I mean, you got a great point about the sound because just after, I was running fastrack, earlier this year and got a good selection of it. I find it interesting that Lionel isn't producing the tubular track anymore. I can understand why, but it's an interesting thing. I really like the light up track. I've got a section of light up track right here. I find that really cool looking. But as far as like putting it together and handling it for temporary purposes like I do, I like the fastrack system. The tubular track, what I've got here is excellent quality stuff. This is all, I believe it's all Lionel. I love the 4-foot long sections. They're great. And, but I need to put the locks in because I operate heavier trains and whatnot. So all the tubular stuff here is all got the rail locks in between it so it doesn't vibrate apart because I use it on a temporary basis. But excellent point on the noise, but I'm going to say fastrack because it's current production and I don't have any experience with the other stuff, so other manufacturers, but it's all good. All good. I'm glad we got choices. That's the main thing. Lots of choices.
I agree with that too. And not getting back to the fastrack problems that I've been experiencing as well, not only just the sound and the vibrations of the hollowness of the plastic, but I've also kind of experienced some technical difficulties where I would hook up the track underneath, like say if I needed to like replace like a straight or a curved section, I would get like a new track section, take the old one out, put the new one in. Over time, it would still run pretty good, but then there would be some points where I would be like sniffing like this weird odor in the air while I was running my trains. And then I would put my hand down on the rails. I would stop the trains right away and just go with my hand and just feel around the entire layout to see if there are any weak spots. And lo and behold, I did come to notice a couple of spots on a couple of track sections where the plastic actually melted in some spots.
Wow, that's really fascinating. I've seen a video, I don't remember who did it, but of a gentleman who stopped using fastrack because of some connection problems he was having. But yeah, it's very interesting stuff. Very interesting.
And I don't know if, because I always, whenever, not just, to both the layouts that I have back here, but with my older layouts, when me and my family were still living in New Jersey, I was mostly running everything with my dad's Lionel post-war ZW, as well as the ZW that I purchased, when I first started working. I don't know if it has something to do with the amount of electricity that's inside the ZW. I mean, it doesn't really have like a problem running the trains, but for some reason it doesn't really seem to like the amount of voltage that I put out for it. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but I've been slowly starting to wonder that over the past couple of years. Even though I don't really use fastrack that much anymore. I mean, don't get me wrong. I still have a couple of sections of Lionel fastrack for like some of my starter sets, but sometimes you just can't help but wonder. From like time to time.
Very interesting. Yeah. It's neat that it's interesting that different people are having different experiences with it, but yeah, it's all good. I just I unfortunately had it pained me that I had to cut a piece of tubular track to make my layout fit the way it does. It's kind of one of them weird things like, oh, I don't like cutting something that obviously it's still being produced and everything, and you got to do what you got to do to make trains run. It's all just a pile of track at the end of the day.
That is true.
I kind of took it as an engineering challenge. It's like, okay, how did Lionel crimp these pins in, and what can I use? And I think I did a good job. This is not my first time cutting track, but it's been a few years. But good stuff. Yeah, so basically I got 3 U's here. I got a U there, and U there, and then a return going around, and just enough room on my table to do it this way.
That's a lot of U's.
Yeah, definitely. It's really good. I mean, it looks good from this viewpoint, but it's really kind of fascinating from this viewpoint because you can see, basically you're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4 lines of track going back and forth. So you really get some good snaking action back and forth.
And I couldn't help but notice some of the buildings that you have on the layout there, such as the passenger station. You got the firehouse, which is the same one that I have on my layout back here, of course. So.
Yeah, that I've got a couple of firehouses, but that firehouse was my dad's. And interesting story about my dad. He got his American Flyer starter set when he was probably 12 or 13, something like that. And he was only allowed to play with, he had a December birthday. He was only allowed to play with it basically Christmas and his birthday, during those short few months. Otherwise, it was put away because it was a very expensive item for the family at the time. And I always found that interesting, and probably one reason why it's in excellent shape today, because it never really got roughhoused with, or basically, how boys are playing with stuff. And my father-in-law has some great stories about him playing with his brothers and their American Flyer set. Things that they would do, stuff that they would set up that the train would run over, and all this kind of fun stuff. But I really love the aesthetic of the Plasticville stuff. I don't quite know why. It's more toy-like, which is probably what I like about it.
Same. I mostly have a lot of my dad's older Plasticville buildings on my layout as well, including Fire Station, of course.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, I got. I actually visited Grubowski's train store when I was in Pennsylvania last year, and I picked up a little Plasticville police station for like $3 or something. So that's kind of cool.
Nice. So are there any particular hobby shops that you like to visit while you're in the area?
There is one in Eau Claire, Wisconsin that I like to visit. I don't quite recall the name of it, but there's only like one big train store. That's their main theme, is trains. That's fun to go to. And Scale Model Supplies in St. Paul, Minnesota is just absolutely amazing. They got basically half their stuff is trains and the other half is models and other stuff. And they have a ton of it, all of it. And their business model is not moving inventory. Their business model, I think, is just buy stuff to have on hand, and if somebody walks in years later and buys it, they've got it, sort of a deal. I don't quite understand their business model, but they've been in business for a long time. But you can walk up and buy something that's a Lionel box that's faded almost to white, and it'll be appropriately priced, but it'll be new in the box still. So it's really a special place to go.
Nice.
Definitely. How about you? What do you like? What kind of hobby shops do you like, and what do you like to see in them, I guess?
So when me and my parents used to live in New Jersey, there would be 2 train shops that me and my dad would always go to. The first one would be the Model Train Shop of Piscataway, New Jersey. They've been open they've been in business since 1933, as a matter of fact. And then the second store that we would always love to go visit would be the Train Station Train Store in Mountain Lakes, New Jersey. And, I mentioned this a bunch of times, not just earlier on in the video, but also in my other videos as well. It's mostly just the stuff that really appeals to me and my dad the most. Sometimes we might discuss things over, sometimes we might agree and disagree on some items. But, the more we kind of talk, the more we kind of discuss about it, the more that a specific item that we might have our interest in has a little bit of a, not just a mystique to it, but also a kind of a good vibe that you would get when you find something that you really want to, purchase. So if there's anything, and I know I also mentioned this earlier before, but usually we don't really order anything too new from Lionel or MTH. Mostly some items from MTH, but that's another story. But long story short, if we definitely see something that we really like the most, we go for it. And considering in regards to our new house, which is in Delaware, of course, you know, the one train shop that we like to go to down here is Seaside Hobbies. Now it's very tiny looking building when you pull up to the parking lot. But once you walk inside, it's almost like walking into a model train wonderland. I mean, there's boxes of Lionel or MTH items all over the place. They have the display case very nicely organized. They have a lot of the newer engines from both Lionel or MTH and Atlas and all that. They got uh, LGBT locomotives, G scale, Plasticville. I mean, you name it, they pretty much have it. So, all things considered, I think Seaside Hobbies is definitely our number one new location for living down here in Delaware.
Nice. Oh, that's awesome. I'm glad you found something local. That's good. That's like when I was just walking in earlier in the week in Minneapolis or St. Paul, Minnesota, there into that Scale Model Supplies. It's like, I'm glad I don't live too close to here, because A, I'd be down there a lot, and B, I'd be spending a lot of my spare money there. So works out okay.
And what's also a bonus for going down to Seaside Hobbies, they always have the parts guys that go down there every Thursday. So in case you ever need like parts and such that you need to order, you could definitely go ahead and either give them send them an email or meet them directly at the store, and you just basically tell them the items that you're looking for, and they'll definitely check to see if they have them or not.
Oh, I'm definitely jealous of that, because luckily I've been real lucky with a lot of my post-war repairs. They haven't required any parts, just a little love and care and cleaning. So yeah, it's like I just went to a train show about 30 miles away, and there was a parts guy there, so I spent a few dollars with him, but got some neat stuff.
Nice. Okay, so I actually got a good one for you. Which is the only item that you ever had to repair once but never had to work on again after a while? Because for me, the only post-war item that I ever had to get fixed only once was the 736 Berkshire. After that, it's been running good over the past couple of years, and I didn't have to worry about it after a while.
Nice. Oh man, that's kind of a tough one, because I am a big tinkerer. I love just, if something isn't quite right or I don't think it's quite right, I just love delving into stuff and pulling the brush plate off and cleaning the armature and doing that kind of stuff. So maybe it's part of my personality, but I'm always into stuff. So I don't I just don't have a problem with it. So, but yeah, I'm a tinkerer at heart.
So am I. Okay, so for all of you guys who are still watching, I'm just going to go ahead and charge my phone real quick before we go ahead and get on to the running session here. But in the meantime, if you guys have any more questions, I'm going to leave the Q&A on for another 10 to 15 minutes or so you guys have plenty of time to throw some more questions or comments down in the comments section below. I mean, you can still throw more comments down in the comments section, make no mistake.
So we got a good question from Ars Train. What is your worst locomotive in your collection? Boy,
man,
got to define worst, I think, but
that's a tough one right there.
I've got a good answer as far as performance goes, but that would be. Let me grab it here. All right, there's a recent video I did. This is a Lionel 1055 Elco FA. It has no main traction, no traction tires, and no additional weight. So it can literally pull like 3 tank cars, or maybe 4 at the most. And 3 with no slipping, 4 or more you got wheel slip, and it's a dumpster fire as far as that goes. But it's got the beautiful Pullmore motor, which even though that one's been run to death, it still runs. So that's probably my worst performing locomotive, but it was the most rewarding one to repair. Let's see. Arstrain said, I had one loco I'll talk about this Sunday on my stream if I remember. I'll definitely have to look you up, Arstrains. Line NW2 that almost caught my house on fire. Yikes, that'd be one. That'd be a worst.
All right, so if you guys haven't followed my friend Corey on his channel, Ours Trains, make sure you do that because he has a phenomenal train layout and a really impressive, not just O gauge, but a really great 8-show collection as well.
Oh, we got a good one from David Mouse. What is your opinion of the new Lionel CSX Heritage locomotives? I just learned about those real recently from the Lionel catalog videos I've been watching. So far, yeah, look pretty cool. I like Heritage stuff.
So, Corey, getting back to that question that you were asking us earlier before about the worst engine in our collection, you know, the more I think about it, I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing like Jeremy did when it comes to performance-wise. I would say, you know, the more I think about it, the Southern Pacific, well, if you guys have seen a lot of my videos, you know that I have a Lionel MPC Southern Pacific F3 unit. Originally, that was not supposed to be the powered unit for the actual set that it came with. It only came with the locomotive and the dummy unit. But little to me and my dad's surprise is that we actually got ripped off, and the owner who had that locomotive on the table had no idea what he was talking about. So we kind of got ripped off, and we realized we had the dummy unit and the B unit. So there wasn't really that much that we could have done about it. But over time, I did eventually get a chassis for the dummy unit itself. So now the locomotive is kind of a modified freight set. But I would say as far as worst in operation, it would definitely have to be that locomotive in particular, because you know, it's MPC. You know, I got nothing against MPC locomotives, but the way that the locomotive, when I turn on the actual engine, it doesn't want to start at first, so you kind of have to give it a little push in order for the motor to start up, and then it might have some other problems here and there, like it would stop on a specific area of the layout, and then the E unit would start clicking like crazy, and then it would go into multiple different directions, like forward or reverse. So as far as I'm concerned, I would probably have to say that would be my number one worst operating locomotive that I have in my collection.
I think I just watched that video where you talked about that engine a little bit.
Yep.
And buying it and finding out it was a dummy unit.
Yeah, and speaking of which, if you guys haven't gone and check out that video just yet, I'll make sure to leave it in the link in the description down below. I go over the revolution of all of the Lionel F3s that I have in my collection and what years that they were made and how they operate and the differences between all 5 of them. And also getting back to that little thing we were talking about when it comes to the best track system, I also have a specific video on that as well, featuring which is the worst track system ever made between Lionel fastrack and MTH realtrax. So you guys decide which is the worst track that both companies have come out with, but make sure to also be kind and courteous to others at the same time, because you know, this isn't really a competition between both of them. I'm just really curious to see what all your guys' thoughts are in the YouTube community as far as operation goes and being a collector in general. And like I said, mostly just to have fun.
All right, got a great question from ELW. What is the size of my layout? So let me grab a yardstick here, and we'll find out. Love this wireless mic, by the way. It is awesome. Let's see here. Yardstick, other end of my long basement. My limiting factor on my layout is the number of tables I have, so that's always fun. Let's see. All right, so we got a yardstick. Let's see here. 3, 6, 9. Let's see. Okay, we're at 12 feet by, let's see here, 3, 6, 9. Okay, 9 by 12. So yeah, big basement, 9 by 12. All right. And R's Trains earlier, I just subscribed to R's Trains, and he said, thank you very much. Found your channel yesterday in the algorithm talking about the New Haven FAs, but I didn't think there's such a thing as too many hobbies. There you go. Yeah, it's
That's
like
funny.
I definitely have a problem focusing. That's for sure. But
You're
that's
not the
okay.
only one, man.
It makes things fun. It's a good thing they don't monitor my my internet usage at work. That's for sure. All right. Let's see here. Wonder why Lionel never made Super Old Track. That's interesting. I don't know too much about Super Old Track, says Radar Diddy. I know a little bit about it, but I'm ready. Oh, keep going.
I have a friend who is a really big fanatic when it comes to Super Road Track. I mean, he's had it for like many years growing up, and he doesn't. He from what he told me, he doesn't really seem to have a problem with it at all.
Okay. Nice.
I love Super Road Track as well. I really wish I had some, but I don't. You don't really see like a whole lot of Super Road Track sections being sold, in hobby shops today.
So, with the Super O, is it a like realistic kind of a vibe to it? Is that what's good about it?
It's very realistic, actually.
Okay.
It's more realistic than the two-wheeler track. It's got plastic ties. It's got really thin rails on the outside of the track, and then the middle rail is actually a copper bus bar in the center, which is a little bit more disguising to make it look like it actually is two-rail track, even though it's not.
Nice. I am just started. Well, one of the things I got at the train show I went to is volume 4 of a Lionel history book. I've been seeing these 4-packs of books for sale on auction on Cabin Fever auctions for quite some time, and book 4, they only had the one book at the show that I spotted, but book 4 is Lionel history 1970 to 1980, and I'm just in the first pages of it, and it's really fascinating that I don't know the detailed history yet of the MPC era, and this is talking about it. And it's like basically 1968, Lionel was actually, or 1969, they were like not going to have a train layout. They weren't going to have a train line. This is just something I'm just starting to read, but I find it fascinating that that was going on. And General Mills, how they kind of worked their deal into getting in there. And I just, from a hobbyist standpoint, before even doing any research, I thought it was like, oh, General Mills just came in and bought Lionel, and they just, cheapen stuff up, and now they're junk and garbage, and MPC is all garbage, which it isn't. And as I get my hands on MPC stuff, I realize like, okay, this isn't really garbage like some people are saying, and reading other reviews of people. And just that history just fascinates me, how this is playing out, and I'm learning a lot. So something different. Yeah.
So in 1957, just in case you guys were still watching, it's time for another history lesson for those of you guys who are kind of unaware, but I'm pretty sure you might know the story by now. So in 1957, Sputnik was launched into orbit, and a lot of toy companies were starting to get the idea on what kind of toy market they wanted to go into. So Lionel came in with Super Road Track in 1957 because they wanted to fight back with other toy companies. They wanted to show everybody that they're still the number one toy manufacturer in the world. But as we all know, in the mid to late 50s, automobiles and airplanes were starting to take over. So trains were slowly, very, very so slowly, were starting to lose their interest.
Yeah, that's another whole interesting thing, that the downturn of the trains
downfall
and all that stuff. Yeah, and it's interesting because there's that kind of thing, like in pinballs and whatnot. There's that kind of thing that happened with video games and something else comes along, and it's interesting with trains. I love how how they kind of came up with a whole bunch of cool space accessories and space cars and stuff. And I don't really know my history as far as when Lionel did this, but there are really some cool stuff like the radar car and, you know, various other cars that are space themed. I think it's really cool.
I love the radar car. That's also another thing that me and my dad have kind of had our eyes on for quite some time, is the radar car. I mean, what's not to love about it? It's just a little flat car with the spinning radar on top when the train starts moving.
Yeah, and then there's, and if I'm thinking about the same car, there's, is it the one that's got like a little place for like a little operator or something, shows like a little radar dish or something like that? Or that might be a different car I'm thinking of, but
probably
could be. Because there's, I know that there's like a radar car and there's like a little guy that's at the radar.
Oh, you mean the little TV monitor car?
Oh, yeah.
Where the little camera starts spinning around with the guy in his chair.
I'm sure there's various designs of that kind of stuff, but yeah, definitely cool stuff.
So Frank says, yes, it's very bad for your pickup rollers. I don't know if I really find that to be the case at all. I think it's probably just the way that you hook up the track itself. So I would probably say you might want to, if any of you guys out there might have a problem like that. And once again, I don't really have fastrack, but I do know somebody who does. He just thinks that it's probably has something to do with the way that you hook it up to the transformer. So maybe that could be the problem of why your rollers will get worn down over time.
They were talking about the super old track because it had a knife edge
yes.
on it, is what I saw. So that I thought was interesting. I've heard that comment before. But yeah, very interesting stuff. But let me move a train out into the center here. Let's do this one. So, not going to start operating yet, of course. But we'll pull this one out to center viewing here. This is an MPC EP5, or Little Joe as it says on the package, which I just laughed at when I saw that. But
oh, there it is.
Yeah. This is a EP5 that I got off Cabin Fever. And one of the things I like about some of the auction sites is you really are buying people's collections, and some collectors just bought new old stock stuff apparently, because I've got quite a few pieces that had like no runtime or hardly any runtime, and it's just amazing. But getting back to the EP5 and Little Joe, I was at the Illinois Railway Museum, and I never researched the Little Joe. I knew what it was. I've seen pictures of it. Very similar locomotive, but you know, different enough. And they actually had one there. It's like, I never researched it. And it's like, whoa, that's a Little Joe. It's so crazy when you're walking around a place like that. You just turn a corner. It's like, oh my God, there's one of those engines that I never thought I'd see in real life. So it's pretty cool.
Nice. Okay, so I'm just going to let my phone sit for another 5 minutes or so. And I'm going to go ahead and hook up my layout, of course. But in the meantime, is there any, I know I asked this earlier before, but what kind of locomotives are you going to be running for us tonight on your end?
I have got, well, hold it. Let's do this. I have got a plethora of locomotives for you guys. Whatever you guys want to see, we got all kinds of stuff here. We got I got a lot of stuff out, and I don't mind running it. So,
oh yeah.
So
that's what I'm talking about.
We got lots of good stuff here, but yeah, it's just all about having fun and whatnot. And I'm glad that my younger son is into stuff, because anytime I get a new engine going, there's a particular engine that you're going to see a video of tomorrow that I will not be running today. Mike knows about it, but he was like, hey Dad, if you need help getting that thing running, I'll be glad to help out. You know, it's like, okay, you're really interested in this engine. So that was pretty cool.
Very nice.
That Southern Pacific F3 is a must run, Jeremy. Let's see here. Oh yeah. Yeah, we got yep. Let's see here. That's a cool story. So I think so this guy right here, MPC era F3, I found this at an estate sale luckily, here's another thing. If you're into collecting locomotives or trains, tell everybody you know. If you want to find the deals or you want to find out stuff that doesn't necessarily get advertised, let everybody know what you're doing and what you're collecting. Because my former boss, who's in another department now, he told me about this estate sale. I was like, hey Jeremy, you going to that estate sale with all these trains? I'm going, what estate sale? It's like, yeah, the estate sale. And he told me about it, and it was like one of the biggest hauls I've ever had. So it was like basically a pair of these guys, dual motored. Price was, nobody was buying it, probably because it was NPC, but there were other collectors there. Nobody was buying this. I looked at it and it's like, why is nobody buying that? It was like I don't know, $120 or something like that. I don't remember what it was for the pair of them. And it's like, I'm buying it. I know what they're worth on eBay or whatnot. I don't buy and sell to make money. I just buy to collect and operate. And yeah, great deal for me. I didn't choose the matching cars because I was already spending a lot of money that day, but I could have. But yeah, a lot of cool stuff. We'll definitely have to run that for sure. I definitely take requests.
And as for me, it's more or less going to be post-war running session tonight. Well, post-war and Century Club running session, because I know a lot of you guys out there like to request my Lionel Century Club 773 Hudson here, and this will actually be the first time that I'm going to be running it as a freight set. So appropriately, I'm going to be running my late 1940s freight set that I put together here, featuring all Lionel equipment.
Nice.
I also have my dad's Lionel post-war 2035 steam locomotive on the middle loop here, with the New York Central post-war stock car. I also have the reproduction of the 3356 Santa Fe horse car, and I also have a Lionel Lines caboose in the back. And then as for my final two locomotives here, I have another freight set, again, another post-war related item. And this is my Lionel 2338 Milwaukee Road GP7 with the black cab. Ooh. And then finally at the top here, over on the bridge section here, I got my brand new MTH Bump and Go trolley in the Santa Fe paint scheme. Once again, if you guys haven't checked out that review that I made on this trolley just recently, I'll make sure to leave that in the description down below.
I got a question, Mike. What do you know what year that trolley was produced, or what year was cataloged?
You actually got me there, because
okay.
Sometimes it's really hard for me to tell when a particular item from MTH was actually made, because they don't really give you that much information on the actual box. Not just for the trolley, but for some of the other MTH items that I have in my collection.
No, that's a fair point. Yep, definitely.
But if I would have had to take a guess, I would probably say this trolley is somewhere around maybe 2018 or 2019, somewhere around there, because I feel like I remember seeing this design from somewhere.
Nice. No, it's a great looking trolley. I liked your video on it.
Thank you.
You bet. So another thing that I'll be running is my first Lionel steam locomotive that I picked up. It's a 221 Dreyfus inspired design here. There we go.
Oh, you got the rare variation.
Yeah, so that's really cool. And I got the green passenger cars with the yellow stripe. The first version, I learned that these are like the first ones Lionel actually put out post-war of the streamlined passenger cars. So that's really cool.
Very nice.
Yeah, it's like I bought those as parts projects at that estate sale, and I wasn't really sure if I would like them. I mean, the color combination's a little weird to me, but after I worked on them and started running them around, I was like, they're really nice. They're the 221 here is all it can do to pull around 4 of them. It couldn't pull 5 if it wanted to. There's no magnet traction. It's too old of an engine for it. But the 221 is an interesting locomotive because it's also kind of top heavy, so you got to kind of watch it on the corners. But definitely a fun locomotive. I'm glad I got it.
Oh yeah. All right. So before we go ahead and get started with the running session here, we got one more comment from Corey here, who is starting to become the star of the show for tonight. In the comment section here.
2020 seems to be the year a lot of us got back into the hobby. I love seeing other people my age into this stuff as well. Hard to describe, but it's always a nice feeling to see my generation like this stuff. Very cool. Very cool.
It was actually a little different for me because I kind of took a break from the hobby around late 2008, just for a little while, and then I officially didn't get back into the hobby until early of 2009.
Okay, I'm going to look up R's trains right now and see what his generation is. So I'm a little out of the loop as far as what his generation is. So I'm curious now. Let's see. R's trains, there it is. I'm only subscribed to like 360 some channels. So, all right, there we go. Very cool. Yeah. No, that's awesome. I think it's great if people of your generation as well. Corey getting into that. So that's good. Good.
All right, guys. All right, guys. So I know this is definitely been a really big live stream tonight, and I'm really shocked to see how many views that we got so far. So before we go ahead and get on with the running session here, once again, I just wanted to thank my friend Jeremy here for joining me tonight. And like I mentioned earlier, he's actually the first guest star on the channel for this year of 2024. So we're just really glad to have him online with us. And Jeremy, once again, thank you again for joining me as well.
You're welcome. It's been fun. The time is just flowing past, just like my Saturn rocket there on the side, just flowing past.
Yeah, definitely. So. I feel like we should really do this more often if we have the chance.
I would like to do that. It's fun. Let's run some trains.
Definitely. You heard the man, guys. We're going to go ahead and get our layouts up and running here. So thank you all for tuning in, and thank you all for who are still watching up to this. Thank you all for who are still watching to join us for the very end of the live stream here, because we're going to wrap everything up with our famous running sessions like we always do here on the channel. And Jeremy's got his trains to run tonight, and so do I. So make sure to enjoy the rest of the live stream here, and thank you all for watching, and we hope to see you all in our next live stream.
If you guys got any questions, I'm going to be in the chat, so hit me up. All right, let's do her.
There we go. And of course, if you guys have any other questions or comments, make sure to fire away in the comments section below while we still have some time left. Oof. Hey, thanks again, Corey. Just remember, I do a live stream every I do a live stream every Thursday around 8:30 every night on my channel. So I'm always here every Thursday once again. So once again, guys, I'm always live every Thursday around 8:30. Same train time, same train channel. You know, if you actually, Corey, if you actually want to join me for one of my live streams one of these days, make sure to let me know what you need. Maybe we can work something out, by the way. No problem.
So, Mike, can you still hear me? MPC Rock Island in Peoria? Bridge trench. That's interesting. Beep beep. Cool. Okay, Mike, I am going to call it a day.
All right, guys. Well, that's about all the time that we have for tonight. So see you all next week, and hope you all have a great night. Take care.